Hello and welcome to part 2 of learning about the Taimanov attack. In the introduction, we learned about how we reach this position here in the modern Benoni, where here bishop b5 check is the Taimanov attack, and I said that the only way white to block the check is with knight d7, where we'll then look at a lot of alternatives. There's like a million moves, very interesting position. However, the second most common way besides this knight of blocking the check is with bishop d7. And so we'll take a look at that here. Although it seems very natural, because it takes away the retreat square of this knight. So let's say we played e5 in this position, then I would be able to go to d7. This bishop blocks the retreat square. So now e5 is much more effective. And black has a few options here. Obviously they have to, this knight's attacked, so they have to do something about it. Very common is the blunder bishop b5, where white wins a piece with the very nice ef6, and we see that both pieces are under attack, and white wins here a piece. So black can't take. Instead, after e5, very common is knight h5. Here, white would like very much to play g4, trapping this knight, as we see it has no squares it can go to. But unfortunately, g4 immediately would run into queen h4 check when black is doing just fine. So instead of that, we have to protect the h4 square with knight f3, and then black will castle. Instead, if very common again is taking out the bishop here, but then we can take back, like if a check. But the problem is that in every single one of these lines, this knight is trapped here. The bishop needs to something needs to be controlling this g4 square, stopping our pawn from going there. So here, like Cal would play g4, trapping the knight. Better is taking on e5, take back, and then g4 again will trap the knights. And we see black has to be very accurate when they play knight h5, otherwise a disaster like this could happen, and does happen very frequently. So going back now, instead of taking on b5, which we just looked at, where g4 hit the knight and trapped it, better is for black to castle, where this is a very opportune moment to take on d7 with the bishop, because black is forced to take with the queen. If instead they take with the knight here, we have, again, g4, and because now h4 is controlled by the knight, there's no queen h4, so this knight's trapped. So we have to take with the queen to control the g4 square, and in this position, we can simply castle, where it's very hard to find a productive plan for the black pieces. We see this knight is sitting on h5, bishop g7 is not doing anything. This knight only has to go to a6, it's only squared, you have to connect the rooks, so knight a6. And then white has a lot of moves here. I like knight e4, it's very simple, and taking. We see white has a very comfortable position with a lot of space. White should be long-term better here, and there's a lot of attacking potential in the position. For example, rook a8 is one move, where we have rook e1, and we're just going to hang on to our pawns here. It may look like it's undefended, but if the bishop took it, we could take back, and with this knight f6, we would regain our piece. So we just get a very playable position here, where again black's pieces are discoordinated, unlike in other regular Benonis, where black's pieces are all very coordinated. Here we see white has a definite advantage. Now going back again, we're looking at bishop d7, e5, and now terrible, but played somewhat often, is knight g8. It's a very strange idea. Black realizes that this knight is having a lot of trouble because of knight getting trapped with g4, and so instead they go back to g8. Here white will play queen e2, and black replies with queen e7 is very natural. If they take on e5, we can take, so they play knight e7, and here the best idea for white is to play bishop g5, which only one player has played on Lichess. The other 9 or so have played the absolutely terrible e6, and then went on to lose the game from this great opening. And here black plays knight to c6, and we see black is totally fine. In a lot of lines we'll look at later, this e6 push is good, but here it's absolutely terrible, because when we played and it's good, it's because we're winning a piece here, or somehow attacking a black king, but in this case we don't have any firepower, and black is totally fine. So much stronger instead of e6 is bishop g5, with the idea of playing For example, h6, bishop f6. We just want to trade these pieces off and attack the king side, and white will be better. So now we go back, and although it's never been played, the engine likes a very interesting idea of knight h6 here for black. The idea of simply castling next, but here we have the nice reply of taking, and a knight f3. Black has a lot of options here. There's still a chess game, right? We haven't crushed them out of the opening, but we see we're much better. This king is terrible. This is questionable. We have much more activity and much more central space. Black can try bishop g4. Wanted to take this pawn next, where we have an option of going for this very pleasant endgame here. We see that white is simply much better in this endgame. This is one option. Also, good is here after bishop g4, playing bishop e3, wanting to take c5 next and trying to play for a little bit more in the middle game. And so black has quite a few options here. The direct queen d6 runs into knight e4. One of the best moves is queen d8, if queen d5. We can take on c5 and then put a rook on d1, where these threats are too much. White will win easily here. So instead of that, black would have to go to d8. Then we could take on c5, and then simply castle with a wonderful position here. And finally here we will look at very natural queen e7, trying to avoid any complications by unpinning with their own queen. Here white has the very nice move to remember, which is knight e4, hitting d6. This is the idea that you see frequently in the Taimanov attack. It's a nice move to make. So the best move for black actually is to take on b5 here. A nice little tactic is try to grab the e5 pawn. We see that may look like we have just lost a pawn, but black has to play very accurately. If they do something totally stupid, like this knight f3, if black gives us an extra move here, h6, some nonsense move, our third is to take and then play knight d6 check, where now we win the queen, which would be very good for us. So instead, black has to be very careful when they take this pawn here, and after knight f3, bishop b5, take with the queen, and we see white gets a very strong initiative here. The queen has to protect the bishop as well as, so the only move is knight d7, and we see white just has a totally overwhelming initiative and will win. So that was a good summary of a few variations, showing why after bishop b5 check, bishop d7 is not a good way to block the check, because now this knight has no retreat square, making the desired e5 even that much more deadly. I hope this was a useful explanation of the lines that occur after bishop d7 in the Taimanov attack. I hope you have a good day.